Thank you everyone for being here and also so early. Are you guys all comfortable? Do you need to move around a bit? You all have good spots? Okay. Feel free to, move around throughout the day if you want to switch spots. I also wanted to give an extra special welcome to our youngest member of the audience, Dea. I'm very, very happy to have a baby in the audience, so thank you, Dea, for being here. As Yorvinda mentioned, I am curator of contemporary art at the Stedelijk. I've been here since 2017, and I actually started as time-based media curator. So that means I work specifically with art and technology. And I did write a book about institutional critique that was published in 2022. So this conference theme actually brings together a lot of different research topics for me in a way that I found really exciting. And it's also, a lot of these speakers are people who I haven't necessarily worked with before, but have had already really incredible conversations with. So thank you to the speakers already for being here with us today. As of this year, I'm also a doctoral researcher at the Amsterdam School for Heritage, Memory and Material Culture at the University of Amsterdam. So I'm working on becoming a bit more of an academic. And this is also because writing is so incredibly important to my practice as a curator. So I know that's probably not a super popular take on curatorial practice, but for me, research and writing is absolutely the kind of first stop in how I think through exhibitions and ideas. I also wanted to mention that the first time I ever came to Amsterdam was in 2016 for Studium Generale, curated by Maaike Lauwert. Yeah, which I realized that last night. I was like, wow, that's so incredibly special. And then during the conference dinner for the 2018 version, I came up with the concepts for my book together with the speakers at the time, Joseph Grigley, Jesse Darling, and Luke Willis Thompson. So yeah, the Studium Generale has played quite an important role in my development as a thinker and curator. So I'm really happy to be here despite going crazy, having 2 small kids and organizing the Marina Abramovich exhibition over the last months. Yeah, so the title Soft Machine is a reference to a William Burroughs novel that I read in university, and I would say straight up that he's not a good person, so take that as a caveat. But I think that the concept of the soft machine is really interesting because it precisely brings together this idea of technology in the body. And in the book, the soft machine is actually the name for the human body and how external powers can assault it and turn it into a machine that follows pre-written life scripts. So within the context of the conference, the soft machine refers to the fact that machines are made by and in the image of humans. So this is also something that I believe that we'll be talking about with Ramon, to some extent also Lila. So machines are far from neutral as they're oftentimes seen, but rather instilled with the belief systems and biases of the humans who made them. So a mixture of artists and theorists will share their work and speak about the personal and political implications of artificial intelligence, machine learning, eugenics, data mining, alongside notions of class, gender, race, modernism, and colonialism. And I'm going to do something maybe at first slightly annoying. I'm going to define my terms. And I think that that's really important, not just for students, but also for, I'm 40 and I still need to define my terms for you guys. What is modernism? What is colonialism? What is decoloniality? So that we're on the same page today. So I find that really important, and this is maybe an experiment for me, but I'm going to offer some definitions of these things briefly and then talk through what you can expect today. So the first concept I want to introduce is modernism. Modernism is a movement in culture and society that arose from the broad transformations in the West during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. And this movement reflected a broad desire for the creation of new forms of art and walking away from more traditional forms of art, philosophy, and social organization that would reflect the newly industrialized world. So the newly industrialized world includes urbanization, architecture, new technologies, and the presence of war. And decolonial scholars see modernity as a very broad period that's characterized by Eurocentrism and also anthropocentrism. So the premise of the West and the premise of the human are the central figures in history. And the present is assumed as the most advanced moment in history, and there's a belief in the promise of the future. Rolando Vescas-Melken, the Netherlands-based decolonial scholar, was in conversation with me on the occasion of the modernity exhibition here at the Stedelijk, and he said, modernity from a decolonial perspective corresponds to the Western model of civilization, which is anthropocentric in placing humans above the earth, and Eurocentric in centering the West in the now of history and the here of geography. So again, it's this West as the absolute center of the world, the most forward-thinking, the most progressive, the most future-oriented people of the world. And so the role of technology in this is major. Historically, technological advancement was also considered as a leading factor in determining a civilization's superiority over others. And digital systems, as such, are made by and for dominant cultures, which in turn leads to new forms of oppression in the globalized world. So, concept 2, decoloniality. Decoloniality refers to the logic, metaphysics, ontology, and matrix of power created by the massive processes and aftermath of colonization and settler colonialism. This matrix and its lasting effects and structures is called coloniality. More plainly said, decoloniality is a way for us to relearn the knowledge that has been pushed aside, forgotten, buried, or discredited by the forces of modernity, settler colonialism, and racial capitalism. And a fundamental decolonial practice is recognizing and figuring out actually one's positionality. So recognizing our position in relation to the modern and colonial divide. Concept 3, Anthropocene. The Anthropocene is our current geological age, viewed as the period which human activity has been the dominant influence on climate and the environment. So within the Anthropocene, continued extraction is needed to sustain technological and digital advancements, and this mimics colonial processes of exploiting land and labor. The Anthropocene and the Western obsession with technological progress is directly linked to the climate crisis. The continued extraction of raw materials such as cobalt is needed for phones, laptops, and car batteries. And so, in terms of data colonialism, the Global South continues to be exploited by corporations for its natural resources. So what would be the logical end to the perpetual need for growth dependent on extracting natural resources? This is a question I think that will be coming back throughout the day today. And one of my favorite quotes is, "It's easier to imagine an end to the world than an end to capitalism." And that's actually attributed to both Fred Jameson and Mark Fisher. Concept 4, almost done, non-Anthropocene. A non-anthropocentric value is a value centered on something other than human beings. These values can be non-instrumental, for example, a value ascribed to the existence of specific species for their own sake, or instrumental to non-human ends. For example, the instrumental value a habitat has for the existence of a specific species. The non-Anthropocene focuses on the relation between human and non-human entities and decenters human experience. This is also, just as within decolonial thoughts, the human, and specifically the perspective of the West, is decentered as truth. So I'm going to move on now to a brief outline of the content of our conference today. We're going to start with a film by Harun Farocki. He, of course, is not going to be with us today because he passed away 10 years ago. But I think that his work is really fundamental to a lot of contemporary practices and also our conversation today. He's influential to artists such as Hito Steiro, and he also coined the term operational images. And that's basically an image that serves as a functional rather than aesthetic image. And these images interpret machine data for human use. So you're going to see that in the video iMachine 1 that we will screen shortly. And as you watch the video, you'll notice that Farocki suggests that the human eye as a tool to witness history has actually been replaced by computer vision, which disables our ability to distinguish between real and fictional images. So operational images are not intended to be viewed by people as representations of the real world. They're created to be used as instruments in performing some task or operation, often by machine automation. After the Farocki film, Dr. Lila Lee-Morrison will join us to give a lecture. She's joining us from Malmö, so we're very lucky to have Lila here. And she will discuss the cultural history and politics of facial recognition technology and trace the cultural history of machine learning. And she will discuss composite portraiture and its relationship to eugenics. Eugenics is a set of beliefs and practices that aim to improve the genetic quality of a human population. Historically, eugenicists have attempted to alter human gene pools by excluding people and groups judged to be inferior or promoting those judged to be superior. Of course, there are many historical examples of this based on genocide. For example, the Holocaust is one of the most well-known examples of eugenics in action. And in Lila's talk, she references contemporary artworks that reimagine and counter facial recognition technology. So she will discuss, for example, the work of Zach Blass, who's here and who will be the conference curator for tomorrow. After lunch, artist Kate Cooper will present a new iteration of her most recent work, Ground Truth, which is a performative lecture that reflects on child development and childcare as a form of creative labor. And within Ground Truth, human development is likened to artificial intelligence and machine learning, and both of these mechanisms are based on constant repetition. And this work, and within Cooper's practice more broadly, the synergy between the operations of body and new forms of technology are highlighted. And after Kate's performance, I will speak together with Dr. Ramon Amaro, and we will discuss his book, The Black Technical Object, on machine learning and the aspiration of Black being. I'm very excited to have Dr. Amaro here. He is a sociologist, researcher, engineer, and curator, and he's currently working at the New Institute. I find it very interesting that he's so many things at once. I can't imagine being an engineer and a sociologist and a curator all at the same time. I can only do one of those things. And his practice also brings together a diverse array of practices, including Black studies, digital culture, psychosocial study, and the critique of computational reason. So we will discuss the relationship between machine learning and racial logic and speculate about potential modes of resistance. And the book, The Black Technical Object, introduces the history of statistical analysis and scientific racism into research on machine learning. And last but not least, Natasha Tontey has come all the way from Jakarta. and she will share her work with us. I'm very, very excited about this. She's a multidisciplinary artist and will speak about her ongoing research into the cosmology and ecology of the indigenous nation of Minahasa from the Sulawesi province of Indonesia. Tontey's previous work from the Epic of the Mapalusin series is currently on display at the Sonic Acts Biennial at W139, and that's just through the 24th of March. And she'll screen her most recent 2 films from the series today. So these works explore notions of queerness, ancient knowledge, the non-Anthropocene, and the equilibrium between human and non-human. And one thing that I like about Natasha's work so much is that it's also like very fun. It's really, really compelling to look at, and it's just a joy to watch. So it's it also reminds me of a bunch of, I will ask her about this later, but it also reminds me of a bunch of different references to like John Waters and David Lynch, and to see this back within a video art practice on ancient ancestral knowledge in indigenous nations is just such a very interesting combination of all of these different aspects. Yeah, so we'll talk more about that later. Thank you so much for being here. This is gonna be an intense day, so take care of yourself. I'll try to do the same. I can't imagine any brain fully being able to soak in all this information, so please take your lunch breaks and coffee breaks and bathroom breaks. I'm also happy to have an open dialogue throughout the day, so please approach me with any feedback or thoughts. Happy to be in conversation with all of you. Thank you.